Are you ready to learn what it takes to be a successful attorney? You're listening to Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. I'm sitting down with some of the most successful attorneys so you can learn how they made it to the top of the legal industry. You'll hear their advice for how you can forge your unique path to success.
Welcome back to another episode of Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. Today's topic is all around active listening. I am pretty obsessed with active listening in my personal life and professional life. I recently moved to the suburbs, I guess it was about 2 years ago, from downtown Chicago. So I'm now in the suburbs of Chicago. And I have been really focused on making friends out here because I really don't know anyone in my suburb. And so I will go to the park with my kids and try and chat up some of the women, or I'll go to a music class for babies and ask for a girl's number because I really want to have a support system. So I go on all of these friend dates, as I call them. And it's become this running joke with me and my husband where I get back from a friend date and he goes, "Well, do we have a winner? Is she the one?" And whenever I say no, which is over half the time, the reason why I say no is because they don't actively listen. They don't seem to care about what I have to say or seem to want to get to know me. I just recently was on a walk with a woman who lives nearby, and we were talking about our work and what I do. And she said, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I run a company that teaches emotional intelligence and communication skills." She said, "Oh, okay. So how long have you lived in Chicago?" Totally moved on from that topic. I could not believe that she didn't care to understand what I do, didn't care to understand what it means to teach these skills. Is it a tech product? Am I giving speeches? Who are my clients? How long have I been doing it? How did I get into this industry? And I immediately knew this is not someone I want to be friends with. Like, for her to not care enough to want to dig deeper. So follow-up questions is one element of active listening. We're going to talk through a lot of different ways someone could actively listen. Just to get grounded in the definition of active listening, I define it as seeking to understand someone else and what they have to say, and also giving them reassurances that they have our full attention, that they have my full attention. Active listening is really hard to do. The reason for this is a fast talker like me, I can only speak at a rate of about 125 words per minute. However, our brains can process words at a rate of 400 words per minute. So that means as I'm talking to you right now, 3/4 of your brain is open and idle to think about other things. You might be thinking about the text message you just got on your phone. You might be thinking about what you want to eat for dinner, or the fact that you're really hungry and might want to have an early lunch. It takes a lot of discipline to listen to someone, and it takes energy to give them cues that we are listening. This theme of active listening or lack thereof is one of the most requested topics from my team to speak about in our speaking engagements and the programs that we're leading at law firms and companies. I think it's coming up so frequently because we've forgotten the importance of reassuring people that we're listening. There's a perception of disengagement, which might actually be happening where people are not engaged in meetings, they're not paying attention when someone is speaking to them. But I also wonder how much of this is perceived versus actual. So I want to dive in today to what are the elements and core components of active listening. And I guarantee you there will be one or two things that every single person can take, apply. Even if you're doing it already, sometimes try to think about how can I dial it up a little bit, make even 5% improvements to show people that I am engaged, because unfortunately, people often assume the worst. I assume you're distracted because it's so easy to be distracted and we have all these things coming at us all the time. So it really does take intentionality to give that person the utmost confidence. Hey, You're all that matters right now. You're the most important person that I am talking to today. I care what you have to say, and I care about what you want to say, but you might not feel comfortable saying it. My goal is to show you that I am here for it. So we're going to look at active listening through the lens of our body language and verbally, what are we saying to show that we're listening? So let's start with body language. I think one of the best, easiest ways to show that we're listening to someone, if you are face-to-face or on video, is simply to nod your head. Research has found that when we nod our head 3 times slowly, the other person will speak on average 3 to 4 times longer. So when you're talking and I'm nodding, I'm thinking, okay, this person cares what I have to say. They want more. I'm going to elaborate. So try nodding. It's a way to show I'm engaged in this conversation and I care about what you want to say. Something really simple that is too often overlooked is simply angling your body towards the person who's speaking. So if I'm standing up talking with someone and I'm kind of angled towards the door trying to see who else is coming into this room or this restaurant, I am showing that they are not my priority at the moment. So physically swiveling your chair, if you're sitting down in an in-person meeting, you're swiveling your chair to look at whoever the speaker is. One of the most underrated elements of active listening is taking notes on what the person is saying. Obviously, this is not applicable if you are out to lunch with a friend and you're not going to whip out a notebook to write down whatever they are telling you about their family or their weekend. But in a work setting, I think taking notes is the ultimate cue of I care about what you have to say. I will always advocate for taking handwritten notes, and I know I've talked about this before. The reason for that is the other person can see exactly what I am writing, maybe not word for word, but they can get a general sense of I'm writing down what they're saying. Whereas taking notes on a laptop, there's this physical barrier between you and the other person that I think just breaks down a little bit of that trust element. And the other person could easily assume you're emailing, you're instant messaging, you're Instagramming, I don't know, anything other than writing down what they have to say. This is at times an unpopular opinion, but eye contact is so critical for active listening. When I am making eye contact with someone, I am showing them I'm not looking at anything else. I'm not looking at anyone else because you have my full attention. Where our eyes go is where our brain goes. And so by making eye contact, you are demonstrating I'm focused on you. For those who will raise their hand and say, what about those who are neurodivergent and don't feel comfortable making eye contact? Completely understand. Whatever I am saying in this podcast or any other podcast are simply recommendations, almost a menu for you to take what you like and leave the rest. If you don't feel comfortable with eye contact, that's totally fine. Dial up some of the other active listening cues to really show someone that you are engaged, even if you don't quite feel comfortable making consistent eye contact. I will say there are social norms in Western culture about how we show that we're engaged in a conversation, and eye contact is one of them. So know that people might make assumptions about your engagement or attention if you're not making eye contact. And you could choose to address it up front if you feel comfortable, if it's the right context, and say, great to meet you. Know that I don't love making consistent eye contact, but I'm fully present in our conversation. You don't have to do that, but that is one option. So those are some body language cues that I think are simple ways to show that you're listening to someone, that you're engaged in the conversation. When we think about verbally how to show engagement, as I mentioned before, follow-up questions, those are key, okay? So why are follow-up questions so important? They show that you have heard what the other person is saying and that you want to know more. Oftentimes when people are talking, they start at kind of a high level to test the waters. Does this person really care what I have to say? Do they want to hear more? And so we want to signal, yes, I want to know how you're feeling, what happened after that, what the impact was. We are often in what's called duologues, which is a phrase coined by the philosopher Abraham Kaplan to describe a dialogue when no one's actually listening to the other person. We're almost in our own conversation with ourselves. We all have our own agenda going into a conversation. Conversations represent and resemble duologues more than we realize, more than we would care to admit. There was this really interesting research done by Bruno Gallinucci and his colleague Gareth Roberts, who wanted to study how much are we paying attention in a conversation. And they looked at instant message conversations specifically. They found that between 27 to 42% of participants in this study did not notice when their instant message conversational partner was replaced by someone new, even when obvious blunders were made, like incorrect references to the other person's gender or misstating what they had already talked about in the past. The person could not tell that the conversational partner had changed. Now, in a separate study, Gallinucci studied face-to-face conversations and had a researcher pose as a conversational partner. When the researcher said, in the middle of a conversation, "Colorless green ideas sleep furiously," only a third of participants noticed this nonsensical sentence, and 90% could not recognize it from a list afterwards. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. If I said that in the middle of our conversation, I would hope someone would say, "Hold up, what did you just say? Did I hear that correctly?" And yet, 2/3 completely missed it. So we are falling victim to all of the distractions that surround us, or even the lack of discipline it takes to really pay attention to what someone's saying. So now I want to think about, how do we active listen in a conversation, and what do follow-up questions look like? I think of it as taking what someone else has said and trying to go one level deeper. Don't just take it at face value. Let's say you have a pretty standard conversation. You say, "Hey, how's your day going?" And someone says, "Oh, I'm so busy right now." That is the most common response, right? You're busy. It's the ultimate humble brag. Dig deeper. Oh, what's making you so busy right now? Is it work? Is it personal life that's been overwhelming lately? It might be something with their family, with their friends. It might be they're planning a wedding. Maybe it's work. You should know that in order to have a conversation with them. "Oh, it's just been really busy. I've got some family stuff going on, and it's been a little bit overwhelming." "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do to be helpful?" No, not really." And then they'll probably elaborate a little bit more, and you can go a little deeper. Or maybe you're having a conversation with someone you just met, and you're at an event in New York City, and they say, "Yeah, I just moved to New York from Ohio." "Oh, cool. What brought you to New York?" "I moved here for work. I moved here just a couple weeks ago, actually." Wow. Is the plan to stay in New York long term, or do you think you'd ever move back to Ohio?" "No, I'm never moving back to Ohio. I love New York so far, and the plan is to stay here long term." "Oh, wow, that's awesome. I'm glad you're liking it so much. What do you like about New York?" So you see, I'm taking whatever they say and just going to that next level. Listening, turning it around and saying, "Okay, what more can I know about this?" So it's almost like active responding, even more so than active listening. You listen and then respond to what they're saying. All the time, I have people say, "I just don't know what to talk about with people. I feel like we're in this awkward conversation and I'm not good at small talk." It doesn't matter what you want to talk about. It matters what they want to talk about. So you listen to what they say and you dig a little bit deeper. Whatever they're telling you is fair game for you to ask even more about. Obviously, there's context involved, but if someone says, "Oh, I was at my daughter's soccer game," I don't think it's too forward to say, "Oh, how old is your daughter? How long has she been playing soccer?" If someone didn't want to talk about that, they wouldn't have mentioned it in the first place. All right, so now let's look at meetings and how to demonstrate that active listening in a meeting. I'm going to go back to number 1, taking those notes in a meeting. All the time, I have leaders tell me that their biggest frustration with people on their team is that the team is not taking notes while they are talking, while they're giving directions on an assignment, while they're giving feedback. It is the pet peeve of so many people. So I will say this over and over again. It is a hill I will die on. Take notes. Participating in meetings. You don't have to speak in every meeting, but you do need to earn your seat in every meeting. What does this mean? It might be you're not speaking in the meeting, but you know your role as the note taker. And so you're taking active notes and afterwards sending a summary of what you heard, what you interpreted, what the next steps are. I think that if you are newer to a team and you don't totally know the lay of the land, should I be participating in this meeting? Should I be speaking up? Am I just the observer? You ask that question before walking into the meeting. You might start with the assumption, I plan to take notes and send out a summary afterwards. If I have questions throughout the conversation, should I ask them in the moment, or would it be better if I wait until the end? Maybe when the client isn't present, I can ask you one-on-one. What does active listening look like on video calls, on Zoom? Oh, video calls. They are such a hard way to connect with someone if the other person isn't making every effort to show that they're engaged. Because we all know when you are on your computer, there is the whole world out there for you to be distracted by. You could be on CNN.com. You could be on any social media account. You could be scrolling your email, getting instant messages from people. It's so hard to connect with someone knowing that you probably don't have their full attention, which is why on video calls, I am hyper-focused on showing that this is all that I'm paying attention to. Turn off any audio pings of your instant message. So when you get a new instant message, there should be no sound that the other person can hear. I know when I'm talking with someone on video and I'm hearing the pings, it distracts me, and I know it distracts them because something's popping up on their screen. I also like to do not disturb when I'm in a meeting, just so I'm not looking down on the corner of my screen to see what someone's saying. I would do the same with email. No email pings, so that when you're on these calls, someone doesn't know that emails are flowing through. Eye contact, still critically important virtually. So too many people have a weird setup with their camera and their computer. Your camera needs to be front and center, so you're making eye contact with that little circle to show I'm focused on you. The other person should feel like you are looking into their eyes. This means you don't get distracted by your own image. I usually turn off self-view, so I can't see myself when I'm in a video call, because I don't know if I'm an egomaniac or self-centered, but I always find myself looking at myself, which is really bizarre. So eye contact is key, even if that means you're not necessarily looking at them the whole time, but it looks like you're looking at them. I like to show that I'm taking notes in a video call by making the pen that I'm holding visible. They can see that I am taking notes on our conversation. I'm looking up at the camera, then I might glance down to my notepad and look back at the camera. I might even say, give me just a second, I'm writing this down. Still relevant is the head nod that we talked about for meetings. And I also think that it's helpful to stay off of mute unless you're in a big meeting. When we are on mute, we're just less likely to contribute because you have to take that physical action of unmuting yourself. And by the time you've done that, the conversation might have moved on to something else. So if you're in a small meeting, stay off of mute, because then the other person knows, oh, they're not, talking in the background. They don't have all these distracting noises happening around them. I think it's a great way to show engagement if you are in a quiet place. Obviously, if you are in an airport, stay on mute. In talking through all of these elements of active listening, I want to wrap up by acknowledging what I just shared takes energy. I've had several people say to me in a workshop or after even a conversation about this topic, sounds kind of exhausting. It is. It takes energy because you're not only thinking about what they're saying, you're also eventually subconsciously thinking about, how do I make sure they know that I'm listening? What cues am I giving off? So now you have almost this multitasking of, what are they saying? How am I going to respond? And how am I showing them that they have my full engagement? I found that in practicing this for years, it becomes automatic. You're doing these active listening cues. It doesn't really take much more energy. It doesn't take really any thought. But it does take intentionality and practice so that it becomes second nature, that you're comfortable with the eye contact, you're taking notes, you're nodding, you're smiling, you're giving these cues that you matter, you're the most important person that I'm speaking with. So give these a try. I guarantee that other people will be appreciative and grateful for your engagement. You instantly become a better conversational partner when you use these active listening techniques. Try them in a meeting, try them in a one-on-one conversation, and make every single person you interact with feel like the most important person in the room.
Thanks for listening to Corner Office with me, Elise Powers. Be sure to follow me on LinkedIn for weekly tips on how to accelerate your career. If you're loving this podcast, I would be so grateful if you'd click follow on your favorite listening platform. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating. If you're interested in having me speak at your organization, or if you have topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, send me a note at info@eleviewconsulting.com. That's info@ELEVIEW consulting.com. All opinions expressed by Elise and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Eleview Consulting or any law firm. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal advice or the basis for legal decisions.